We're just waiting on Johnny X to get back from visiting the little hackers room. And then we'll get started.
Once I did it, I go, there's Big Ben. This is the European vacation. Hey, look, kids, there's the artichoke. There's the out there. There's
Talking about the strip in Vegas, where you got everything all at once.
Oh,
Is that what you're talking about?
the European vacation.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Talking about driving through Vegas on the strip, man. It's all right there. Oh, look, there's the Eiffel Tower. There's the Control.
The Great Pyramids.
There's the Great Pyramids. Yeah. All good stuff. Where are you at?
In the corner.
You're not going to get anything on 5 or 4 because they only have access points on 3, 7, and 8.
We got a signal right outside the door, which we stepped inside.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we had no clue that this many people would actually get rooms this year.
Oh, really?
We planned on 2, maybe 2.5 floors, and apparently we're up to almost 5 floors now worth of rooms. So it has been a tremendous success so far. And I'm wondering where all these people. There's not very many people. I see a lot of people going in and out. I haven't seen a lot of people congregating in the inlet room. But
Well, I have the most important question we asked today. Where's the closest liquor store?
I will give you directions to the liquor store.
There
There is a wonderful place called Frugal Liquor Warehouse. Does that sound like the kind of place you'd want to go? If so, I would be happy to give you directions to Frugal McDougal's Liquor Warehouse.
What are you doing? No, just wait on trying to educate her.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
Do what?
That explanation.
I can't tell if that's good or bad. Frugal McDougal's.
Oh, they've got everything.
Everything?
They've got everything. Yeah, they're pretty good prices.
Alright, we're going to take Frugal McDougal's.
So far the panel has started off with directions to the nearest liquor store. So.
Where's that?
That's always important. Yes. So to get to Frugal McDougal's, the easiest way from the hotel is to go to this light, which you can see from the porch.
Someone beer me. It's time for me to start drinking. You want
I haven't had any yet at all.
Would you like
I think after providing you people with 7 years worth of entertainment, goddamn it, it's time we got some booze. So,
Hell yeah.
beer
Can we
us.
bring cans of beer for y'all?
We got it.
We got beer, but we need to know you have to have your own bottle.
I can't break the rules for me and expect to be able to enforce them for others.
I've never paid attention to rules. Go for it.
Oh, damn.
So to get to Frugal McDougal's, at this light that's right outside of the parking lot, turn left, and you're going to go across the river. That's Jefferson Street. Take that all the way until you get to 8th Avenue. And there's a light at 8th Avenue. Turn left on 8th, go through downtown. So maybe about a mile after you turn onto 8th, look for the intersection of 8th and Division. And at that intersection, there is a huge metal building with lights all over it and neon that says Frugal McDougal's Liquor Warehouse.
You realize that all of the kind of already buzzed people here are going to get hopelessly lost and you may never see them again. We need access to booze down here where you can point someone drunk and say, stumble there. and
Well,
get
if
more.
you just want beer, you can always go to the gas station across the street.
I'm assuming there's no hotel bar.
There is a bar in the hotel. It's a country karaoke bar. If you're interested. And also, we chose this location because you are only 2 blocks away from the only mechanical bull in Nashville.
Wow.
So there is a place called the Trap. After you get drunk, you're more than welcome to go over there and climb on the mechanical bull and see how many
Not the shooter.
how many hops it takes before you puke all over the place.
Did it occur to them maybe there's a reason why there's only one in Nashville and they're the only ones that have it? Just
Well, I'm just disappointed that Tim Ball didn't come because we were definitely going to get him drunk and tell him about it because he would go.
bitching at me.
He would go.
Maybe this is one of these artificial scarcity situations.
He might still be here.
I quasi might have changed his mind. He might show.
Well, one of the cheap fares for plane tickets that Dementia posted on the forums thing, I believe, was for Boston to Nashville.
When he was like, how do I get to Nashville from Boston in 2 days? And I said, Tim, you're going to find a way. You know, he's going to find a way.
Well, I hope that he does find a magical way because that should simply be very, very fun. So let's actually get this panel started, and officially it's being hosted by my companion Johnny X, who actually began PhreakNIC.
Used to me.
Well, okay, not bedtime companion, but my
No, I meant it was news to me that I was officially hosting this panel.
Well, yeah.
No, totally not me.
So can we get those instructions posted?
Hosted by Johnny X and Dolomite.
That's
So,
what the paper
you know,
says. All right, so I guess I'll
And
host
his
it.
name came first, so
Well, and then
I'm going to let Johnny X kind of get this thing kicked off, and it's basically going to be a Q&A because a lot of questions come my way about how do you start a con, how do you run a con, and this is basically your chance to ask questions in case you thought about doing it in your own area or for whatever interest you may have.
I think that's a good thing. People should start cons in their own areas. We've got 615 covered, 404 is pretty much covered. It's time for some of the folks in Alabama or South Carolina or Memphis or whatever to start stuff out. It doesn't have to be really big initially. You can start small. The 2 main requirements I found that you have to be kind of dumb to take on a project like this, and you have to be persistent. And those are 2 qualifications that I had in spades when we decided we were going to do the first PhreakNIC. First one we did was at a pretty small hotel out on 24, and it had one conference room. I think it was maybe altogether about the size of this section over here. We got about half of it the first year. We didn't really want to announce it because we didn't know if we were going to all get arrested or something, so we kept it kind of quiet and low-key. Had about 40 people show up, set up a land, and realized, wow, okay, we can do this, and the feds aren't going to kick the door down and haul us all the way in handcuffs, so let's try expanding it next year. And that's pretty much what we did, and it's grown over the years through lots of love and inattention and alcohol into the piece that you see now. So, questions? Any questions? So come on, surely someone's got questions, comments, criticisms, requests.
First, can we
threats.
get a volunteer to walk around with the wireless microphone, and because we are trying to record this, so it would be nice if the recording would have the...
Who wants to be a mic boy for beer?
Yeah, who wants to be the Mr. Microphone?
For beer?
So didn't you have a question?
I have a question.
Actually,
How much did it cost to set up originally? Or how much do you think it would cost to set up a small con?
The very first one we did, like I said, had about 40 people. And actually, the second one, I think we had about 120, 130 people show up. There wasn't that much price difference. The main costs were the paying for the convention room itself, which there's a way you can usually get around having to put down money on the convention rooms. And for the second year, getting t-shirts printed out. We were little known fact, we had t-shirts we were getting printed out for PhreakNIC 1, and about 4 days before the convention, the t-shirt printer shop burned to the ground. I think back, we've still got pictures of that somewhere. So it was an act from God. But I believe I've actually got the receipts still for all this stuff at home. I don't remember the exact figures, but I believe my total expenses to PhreakNIC 1 were about $150, maybe $200, and for PhreakNIC 2, I didn't have to spend more than $200. The total expenses involved, I think, were around $600, but most of that we got back through some just setting out a donation bucket.
That number varies. I mean, it's nowhere near that today.
One very important thing to do, and this is how I found hotels will try to screw you over if you work out a deal where you have a rate, a set rate, room rate, and they will give you, a lot of times, the con space at a greatly reduced cost or even for free if you can guarantee X number of rooms, guest rooms per night. And what they'll do is you'll get your contract signed and have this specific rate for the convention, and then 6-8 weeks before the convention starts, they will have some kind of special where you can get rooms for your convention rate minus $10. And what they're trying to do is get people into the hotel and attend the convention, but they want to say, oh, well, they didn't get your room rate, and therefore you're not. We have no control over setting these rates that comes from corporate, and you didn't meet your required limit rate. We have to charge you for the conference. But you can usually get around that with a little amount of threats just by taking an accurate count at your convention check-in desk and who shows up and what room they're staying in. You'll not get a lot of personal information, but if you can go up to the manager at the front desk afterwards and say, we have people here in the convention staying in all of these rooms, and they showed up to the convention and they're going to give us the con space because you basically undersold us on the commissioner who like to send you on the contract. I haven't had a problem with it, unfortunately, ever. And nowadays I do the contracts a little bit different for different for PhreakNIC 4 and 5 and for Arizona down at Atlanta, which is kind of involved with down there. I hope that answers your question.
Over here. Or is there anyone I can speak? Well, we want it to be recorded, so please go to the microphone.
Did you ever find yourself in a spot where you have to accommodate the expenses of speakers that come into the car, or you only take people that actually pay their own plane ticket and come down here?
Well, so far, for the last 2 years of PhreakNIC, where I've been running it, we haven't paid to get anybody here, and it's mainly because we kind of target the admission fee just so that we can break even on everything. So we're really actually looking to come out just even. And so in that, we don't really accommodate anybody with hotel rooms. This year, for one of the bands that we have playing tomorrow night, I did get them a hotel room, but that's really the first time that I've done that. Now, a lot of times, you'll have to at least pay for the hotel room if you want to get somebody to come from out of town. Airfare, the expenses really add up quickly, and that's why you have something like DEFCON where you have to pay $75 to get in, because they are paying, in some cases, not all the cases, but in some cases they're paying the expenses for people to come out to the conference. PhreakNIC in scope, and we kind of had to go through an identity. We had to re-identify ourselves last year when I took it over, because we kind of said, well, where do we want to go with this? Do we want to just stick with being a regional convention, or do we want to try to make it bigger and maybe more nationwide in spec? And we kind of said, no, actually, there's a need to have a regional convention. It doesn't need to be something that you advertise heavily, although we did drop a lot of cards out at DEFCON, but we don't necessarily buy ads in magazines and things like that and advertise on the radio or anything. We're trying to keep it from being commercial. We're just doing more word of mouth type advertising because we really want it to be this is a con that is identified with the South and it's identified with Nashville. And that's pretty much the thing that we decided is what makes us unique in the con area. So yeah, we've got some big ones. That's only an hour. That's only an hour and a half flight, so not too bad.
What was the original question?
The original question was, do we ever have to pay for speakers to come in?
Interzone's a little bit different because when first 5 years we ran PhreakNIC, we didn't really charge commission for anything. It was just a donation bucket. And most of the speakers who were invited in understood that. I was able to get comp rooms the last couple of years for one of our speakers. That was no problem. Interzone is blatantly a commercial convention, and Rocket is the other guy who does it with me. It's his baby. I'm kind of like the second in command, I guess, of that. And he wants to grow it large, and so yeah, we can pay for people to come from out of town. We pay airfare and stuff like that, depending on who it is. If we're inviting to come back and we want them to be there.
How do you keep from getting sued for whatever might happen here? I mean, somebody sends their 17-year-old kid by themselves, or there's a lot that can happen.
Right. Well, there's two parts of that. First of all, everybody who is in this room has agreed to the indemnification form by participating in the conference, and really that is just there as a means of protecting us to say we are not babysitters. And if someone were to send their 17-year-old kid to a conference unsupervised, then really that's more parental negligence than it is something on the part of the convention organizers.
Hotel's not supposed to rent you a room unless you're clear.
Right, so yeah, a 17-year-old can't rent a room from a hotel. So somebody had to let that person in. So it's really whoever they're with that would be more at fault than us. I mean, we're certainly going to be on the lookout for somebody who looks like they're 17 years old and they're walking around drunk and everything. We're going to, say, hey, you need to calm down, get in your room, and not be part of this convention if you're going to be acting like that.
This is not to say that we don't, want minors minors in bar from the community. That's not the case, especially during the Install Fest and stuff like that. And showing up with their parents, a lot of times it's kids who are enthusiastic about, let's get Linux installed on the computer. They show up like that, or people, coming to games, so on and so forth. As long as there's some kind of adult supervision. No problem with minors, but minors driving across state lines and checking the hotel. Yeah, big problem with that, but the hotel should allow everything. And we also have clauses that stated for PhreakNIC when I was running it that you have to be 18 or older, or you're having parental supervision before we get your badge.
How do you determine your topics each year? Do you kind of repeat things that are popular, or do you try to do things that DEFCON didn't do, or things just for this reason that people didn't attend DEFCON didn't want to get, or
All of the above.
Yeah, we at the end of PhreakNIC 6, and there's a mute switch on there. At the end of PhreakNIC 6, and we'll be having it at the end of PhreakNIC 7 as well. On Sunday at noon, we will have basically an open panel where you as the audience or the participants of PhreakNIC can say, hey, this is what we like. We'd like to see more of this, or this wasn't really that popular. One of the things that a lot of people were vocal about last year was that they liked the fact that there was only one panel at a time. Because in the past, there have been two really good panels that you wanted to see that were happening at the same time. And so that's why we decided, we'll go ahead and start it at 1 o'clock on Friday instead of trying to cram everything into Friday evening and Saturday, but with two panels running at the same time. So from a logistical standpoint, it ends up being easier this way. Although if we were to get too much information, we'd have to, certainly go to multiple rooms. But as far as the topics, that's basically whatever was popular and what people said, hey, this is pretty cool. Or if somebody's got a project they've been working on and they've actually done something, instead of just read about what other people have done, then we try to give them priority in the presentations. For instance, Mark Spencer with Asterisk, that's an active project that he works on, and they've been coming since what year? 4, yeah. So, it's kind of, this is the place where, he comes and talks about what's been going on with Asterisk, and that's a really good project, and it's getting really popular, and it's actually got installations in corporations and telephone companies.
A lot can change in the space of a year too. So people who basically show up and do a good job and are sober during their talks, and people find it interesting to get invited back. As far as new stuff, once you've been around for a while and information's gotten out about your convention, people will approach you and contact you wanting to say, hey, I had an idea for a talk. That's, as long as you've got guidelines somewhere for presentation submissions, it's usually not a problem.
Right. So, for instance, when people approach me about the presentations, I'm still looking at it from a survival standpoint. I'm not going to do anything that's going to necessarily put me in trouble. So I'm not allowing anything like, how to break into somebody's house and steal all their information. Anything that is blatantly illegal, I don't allow on the talks. If it's something I don't necessarily know about, that's a whole other situation, because somebody could always, and you kind of have to trust your speakers. Somebody could say, yeah, I want to come talk about cryptography, which Justin had done earlier today at 2 o'clock, and he could have gotten up here and started talking about DCSS, which we know has been banned because it's evil code. But, plausible deniability becomes a key concept to learn when you start organizing a convention.
Burn that phrase into your brain if you decide you're going to be the head of a project like this. Plausible deniability. It will save your ass. Next.
Okay, go ahead.
How did you work on the actual infrastructure for the wireless? Do you pick all hotels that already have the infrastructure built in, or do you have a deal with a local cable company saying, put this in, we'll provide it? Did you all invest all your routers here?
Well, we actually had a wonderful situation with this particular hotel, and that's why I'm wanting us to be able to be in a position to come back to this hotel several times. The management of this particular Days Inn has got to be some of the best I've ever worked with. I talked to the general manager about the idea of running some permanent Ethernet cabling between the downstairs where they have their internet connection coming in and all the way up to here, just so that we wouldn't have to deal with it during the weekend of the convention. And so he and I started talking, and next thing you know, he says, well, we've thought about putting internet access in some of these areas for the guests to be able to use. And they had been wanting to create hotspots in the hotel, at least on some of the floors, to provide free internet access. So we ended up working a deal out, and this is another way that you can basically make your convention work without having to put a lot of cash up front. We got a pretty sizable credit towards the rental of all this meeting space for running the cabling, and the manager said, go buy the equipment that we need, we'll trust you, as long as it's not over this dollar amount. And so we were given a budget, and we went and bought access points and switches, and we installed them, and they reimbursed us for the equipment, and they gave us a credit for the labor of running all the cabling. So, there are a lot of creative ways that you can make the convention end up costing you very little out of pocket. It also kind of gets you in a nice position of being able to say, well, we want to hijack the land and put a firewall on it for the weekend. So, they end up becoming very cooperative with you.
I take it again that you had to cover most of the costs out of your own credit card and pocket?
Yes. An official sponsor of both PhreakNIC 6 and PhreakNIC 7 is Gold Knight's American Express card.
Yes, I remember that last year. I wanted to ask about that.
Yes. Fortunately, once you have done business with someone, repeat business typically ends up in some form of credit with them. So last year we had some pint glasses that we'd given away to the first 100 people that showed up, and those were printed through a local printer here. And so when I contacted them this year about the little sports safes that you've got and the water bottles, which are all contain water as far as I know, he said, well, you purchased from us last year, and you paid on time, so you've now got net 30 terms. So I've got 30 days to be able to pay, and so I'm still liable, in case we don't make enough money, but I didn't have to fork over all the cash for the imprint items, because this year we did 400, because we had almost 400 people last year. And I think we may run out of stuff this year. There's a lot of people who showed up earlier than I thought they would. But imprint costs are almost $2,000 by the time you go through everything, kind of t-shirts and stuff.
So shall we plate your American Express card with gold once it expires as a souvenir?
Well, it's not a gold one, but it's definitely stretching the limit of my abilities to provide credit. We'll just say that.
What do you have to do to broadcast the presentations throughout the whole hotel?
Well, again, we've done a lot of work in the hotel, and actually Maverick, who is one of our core staff members, he works for the cable company, and the hotel happened to be having some problems with their cable TV. And so he came over on a Saturday and fixed it for them, and they said, wow, great, that's fantastic. I could never get, somebody from Comcast to come out here and oops, I wasn't supposed to say any names. I can't get anybody from the cable company to actually come out here and get the thing fixed. And you did that. Wow, that's great. And so we got brownie points with the manager. But even if you're not doing something like that, basically if you go to the management of the hotel and you can explain to them, this is what we want to do, do you have a problem with us doing that? And if you ask them, instead of saying, we have to have, the ability to broadcast this over the channel, then you can usually get what you want. Being very diplomatic with the management is important. And the truckers have something to say.
I was going to comment too that you're not necessarily limited to just one channel. You can pick up a small 3-channel demodulator for under $100, and industry standard equipment jacks into the cable system that gives you 3 TV channels to play with. Just ask management, we'd like to do this, can you show us through? They usually got an engineer on staff. If they're not available when you're in there talking with the hotel, you can usually set up an appointment. And I know that the Days Inn out by the airport, it was kind of a dump, but we had a real enthusiastic tech guy who was associated with that hotel, old-time BBS scene guy who was thrilled that there was going to be a hacking convention at the hotel. He went above and beyond, and we managed to do, 2, 3 TV channels out there. I don't know for PhreakNIC 4. I don't remember if we did anything for PhreakNIC 5.
5, it was just one channel.
Yeah, I know we had more than one channel for PhreakNIC 4. I think it was 2 or 3 channels. Never hurts to ask. Worst thing I can say is no.
With the liability issues, is that the only reason you don't offer web-based registration?
Well, we're not doing the web-based registration because nobody used it last year, and I'm not going to invest the time and effort that it takes to develop, a system and either go through PayPal or, set up some other method of payment if people aren't going to use it. It's simple as that.
Yeah, as far as liability issues go, if you state up front, do not, you don't break the law. We're responsible for the convention rooms. The guests are responsible for their individual hotel rooms. You pretty much got most of it covered. And I would recommend, especially if you're planning on having more than 50 to 60 people show up at your first convention, if it's going to be something more than a glorified weekend land party, definitely get a lawyer to look over a contract for you. Definitely.
One other note to make about dealing with hotels is if you do plan on setting up a convention, from the very beginning, you need to clearly establish one person that is going to act as the liaison with the hotel, especially with this group, because I know that several people have already requested extra key cards, and the hotel front staff has been informed of that again. But also, there are even several people in the planning committee that have been saying, hey, I need to get access here, I need to get access there, and the hotel staff just ends up not really knowing who they're supposed to listen to. So it keeps them from getting frustrated. And frustration is one of the key reasons why a hotel may say, we don't want you to come back next year. Because, making a mess, well, that's what a lot of this space is for. And I've been up here after parties in this particular hotel and seen the space, and it was a huge mess. So I don't think a mess is anything that we have to worry about. It's just really the frustration of dealing with, so many people coming at them at once. So that's a good thing to keep in mind.
One very important thing to keep in mind, gotta have this, is it's almost as important as plausible deniability, maybe even more so. From the beginning, you've got to have one person, and one person only, who says the buck stops here. You've got to have a single individual in charge of the project. At AtlantiCon, I wasn't part of the planning process for AtlantiCon 1 or 2, but my understanding from talking to some of the original organizers is the reason that convention no longer exists is because it was run too much like a democracy, and there was no really clearly established one person who had final word on all decisions. PhreakNIC 1 through 5, I ran it as a benign dictatorship. There were a lot of people who helped out with that convention, and I'm not the person who put on PhreakNICs 1 through 5. Maverick was involved with it every year. Dolomite was involved with it. The National Linux Users Group people were involved with it. It takes a shitload of people to put one of these things on, especially when they get big. But I was the person who made the final decisions. I was the person who signed the contracts. I was the person who talked to the hotel. You got to have a benign dictator in charge of it. Dolomite's been the benign dictator behind PhreakNIC 6 and 7. It doesn't work as organizing these things doesn't work as a democracy. You
Well,
have a committee, but you got to have a CEO.
Yeah, it can to an extent. It doesn't mean that, one person makes all the decisions. For instance, a lot of the things were basically put to a vote among the committee, but you do have to, as the benign dictator, you kind of have to say, these are the possible choices we can have in this situation, and then let the democracy decide how it's going to play from there. But you do have to kind of keep things from getting out of hand and coming up with unrealistic decisions.
I was going to add that 15 minutes before I came up here, I did request a key at the front desk to see if they would give it to me, and they said that I had to talk to you first. So basically they said, everyone just go talk to you.
Okay.
That's the disadvantage of being a benign dictator, is that everyone comes to you.
That's right. So if you need a key to your room, tough. You can fall asleep here, and maybe
Dolomite retirement fund.
and maybe nobody will mark up on you with Sharpies.
How far planning in advance do you have to do? You recommend like a year of planning?
Yes. The first time you do it, you need at least a year. So last year, that was the first time I did it. It took a lot of work, and we met every month, once a month, up until about 3 months before PhreakNIC 6, and then we started meeting every other week. This year, we kind of waited until about May or June to really get started thinking about it, because we had so much done the previous year. So you were probably starting, a month before PhreakNIC 4, since you've done it 4 times?
No, my advice is going to be 6 months before the convention date, have 90% of the work done. Have your hotel, especially if you're doing this for the first time, have your hotel picked out, have the dates set, start advertising it, have the contract signed, have confirmed guest speakers, have some ideas what you want on t-shirts, badges, program booklets, things like that. PhreakNIC 3 was the hell year. You got to have reliable people to help you out with this too. If someone promises to help out 1 year and they don't follow through on it, don't use those people the next year. Don't depend on the next year. I got stuck PhreakNIC 3 and had a lot of people bail on me on some stuff at the last minute, and spent roughly 4 days prior to the convention without sleep and also working a full-time job preparing for the con. So anyone who was at PhreakNIC 3 remembers I disappeared early into the day on Friday, and no one saw me until Saturday morning. Basically, I went to my hotel room and passed out because I'd been out almost 100 hours at that point, and I was hallucinating. You don't want to get to that situation. It's not fine.
Definitely not.
So yeah, the bigger the con gets, the farther ahead you want to try to have stuff planned out. And 6 months is a really good figure, I think, from personal experience.
Yeah, I'd say 6 months if you've done it before, or a year if you haven't.
And as far as, I know my partner and I live from North Carolina, and I know security and hacker, the word hacker, everyone freezes up, you don't know what to think. So as far as education, people let them know that this is, how do you present it? This is a security conference, it's a hacker con.
Well, PhreakNIC is no longer officially a hacker con, and I know some people have kind of gotten a little upset with the way that I've changed the name on it, but it's now a technology and culture exhibition.
When we've been moving around, I kind of let summarize. If you're going to use the hacker word, be very quick to follow it up with hacker in the original non-criminal sense of the term. And you may even want to have a printout from the jargon file. There's a nicely formatted page with hacker and hacking ethic on it to hand out to people and say, when we use hacker within the community, it's shorthand for this. If you would rather we say computer or computer security, that's fine, not a problem. But if you hear hacker, don't get freaked out. The conference is not about stealing credit card numbers and making free phone calls.
One thing that has worked extremely well for me in explaining this to the vendors and sponsors, especially for things like anime, getting the permissions on those, has been to say this is like an auto show for computer geeks. And that's really what this is. It's just like going to an auto show or a Harley show, and people are usually not threatened by the idea of an auto show or a motorcycle show. So if you really push it that way and say, it's a bunch of people who have a common interest in computers, and they're getting together and they're talking about how they work and some of the neat tricks and things that they can do, and they're not talking about how to steal your credit card and things like that. So that seems to diffuse the situation a lot, and it's worked pretty well for me.
It worked out well as PhreakNIC got more and more established, simply because we could, when we switched hotels, we could refer people we were negotiating with to the places we've been previously, and also mention that we've got off-duty cop friends who are going to be working security. It's open to the public. If this was some kind of criminal organization or scheme, we certainly wouldn't be inviting police and anybody else who wanted to show up. It's about kind of correcting misinformation, bad stereotypes, and basically poor media reporting is how I presented it. I referred to it as a community service for several years.
Yeah.
I have a question about content.
Okay.
What would be the legal ramifications if there were content that was harmful in some way?
Well, I think Johnny X might be a little bit more experienced with that.
Interzone here, I believe. Interzone 2. We, I saw a hand over here. Was there another hand over here? I want to make sure we don't leave anyone out. Okay, Interzone 2, we've got a lot of the background and documentation on what happened in Interzone 2 online, but just to put it very, very briefly, a couple of people were going to be talking about some flaws with the Blackboard card reader system, and that's what you use as far as student IDs. They've got to do anything from get codes, do laundry, buy food, you can pay your tuition or books. It's basically a credit card looking thing with your picture on it, most implementations, a mag stripe on the back, yeah, something like that. And what the individuals involved, I have to be careful how I phrase this here. One of the speakers had been documenting security problems, and they were security problems because he published his information for about 18 months prior to the convention. He'd given several other talks on this and the problems with the system. He notified Blackboard. He'd done the usual, found a problem, got to report it to you, give you time to clean it up, I would like credit for it. Yeah, the guy's an engineering student. He was hoping to wrangle some employment out of this, if not with Blackboard, it used to be recognized as, finding his problems and notifying the vendor to correct them. The vendor ignored him, denied there were any problems, even in some of the tech press said he was a kid who didn't know what he was talking about. At that point, he just started publishing articles and going to conventions. They came to Interzone 2, they were going to do a talk where they allegedly claimed that they were going to be able to expose more security problems and take over access, basically not take over, but clone access control devices and lie to the network and claim that, oh yes, we're an authorized part of the network. We can accept traffic and we can make financial decisions, authorize payment, and so on and so forth. They were basically expanding the scope of the bug reports they've been doing previously. We were served we received an email, I guess, about 18 hours before their talk that was followed up by FedEx delivery. That was a cease and desist order and a restraining order against the convention, which at the time we thought it had actually been signed by a Fulton County judge. It had actually been signed by a clerk, so there's some question as to the legality of that. And in addition, the two speakers were told that they were also served with a cease and desist and restraining order, and they received letters from SAD Law, which is one of the largest law firms in the country, like the Clintons or some of their clients. And we're told basically if you give this talk, we're going to file charges against you and accuse you of violating with everything from the Digital Millennium Copyright Act to the Domestic Economic Terrorism Act and several other federal and state statutes. Yes, sir.
Was there a restriction in the terms that it said in the conference or in the building?
I can't hear what you're
There was
saying.
a restriction where in the document itself, it said it could not be presented in the building where the conference was taking place.
Well, hindsight's 2020. I guess we should have moved it out to the parking lot then.
It was.
Well, not that he
Maybe I should
knows
know
of.
that, but the long and short of it was we got served, and eventually, as far as the two speakers went, they settled out in court with some hefty legal fees were involved. And by the way, if you're getting free legal assistance from the EFF, my advice after seeing what happened to these people, and this should not be construed as legal advice, but if you go ahead and take on a private lawyer, because that lawyer thinks they will be able to further their reputation in their business by fighting a DMCA case, and DMCA charges are dropped and the lawyer loses interest in the case, the EFF can't help you out anymore at that point because you've gone to basically a commercial lawyer. So if you're getting free legal advice, stick with it.
About how many people, what percentage of the people do you find come locally or from, a different state, or do you have any idea what the distribution is?
Well, in the beginning, it's almost entirely local, but by PhreakNIC, we had people coming from out of state. It wasn't the majority of that. I would say we have maybe a quarter to one-third of the people who are non-local, non-regional. And we had one guy come up from South Carolina, part of South America one year. We said, oh, it sounded interesting.
Yeah, I think we have probably about 30 to 40% chunk of people
Let's find out.
that are from out of.
How many people are here locally? Yeah, from the local area. How many people travel from outside Nashville or outside Tennessee?
Okay, so I'm wrong. It looks like we have about 60% to 70% of the people at least attending the talk.
How many people travel more than 100 miles?
Wow.
How many people travel more than 500 miles? How many people travel here from outside the U.S.?
Not today,
Okay, out of curiosity, how many people heard about this at DEFCON?
Cool. But you didn't come from Lithuania for the conference, did you?
What?
Did you come from Lithuania specifically?
I'm waiting.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Okay, well, we're about out of time here. Let's just do one more little poll. You can just shout out. How did you find out about PhreakNIC?
Google.
Google.
Someone else's t-shirt.
All right. Anything else to add?
Oh yeah. Make sure you give people something interesting to take home with them that will also, possibly spread the meme concerning your con. T-shirts are good for that. So are badges and program booklets. Souvenirs. Souvenirs are a good thing. Just don't go too overboard in the first year or two because it can be expensive. And T-shirts are usually the only items you're selling, although setting up a donation bucket for a nonprofit or a free convention to cover the cost of booklets and badges will usually get you a pretty fair amount of money. You'll find a lot of your expenses are covered if you can do that.
About sponsorship.
Sponsorships are good. We've got several with Interzone. there's really not enough time left to go into that, but be careful about sponsorship because you don't want sponsors dictating the terms of the convention. You don't want to be too dependent on them. Oh, if you don't do this, I'm going to get my sponsorship. Anyone? Thank you.